Welcome to NUYU Voices Emerge podcast. And I'm your host, Sheriene Harris. And on today, I have the plum pleasing pleasure to interview our very own Pastor Wesley Wooten of Word Way of God Deliverance Ministries, located in the beautiful city of Hampton, Virginia, as well as the love of my life, Kevin Harris of Take the Journey Enterprises. And today we're going to talk about a topic that is dear to my heart, and it's called I'm Fine, Suffering in Silence. And these dynamic men here, both sitting on the side of me, have some stories to tell. They definitely have some intricate stories to tell, and I know the half has not been told. I know there's some things that they will share, and there's some things that they probably will take to their graves with them. But I am going to kind of turn it over to them in just a second. The reason that this topic came about for me was that, as you both know, my dad has been gone, and he died back in 2012, and I miss him dearly. But he was always the man who held it down. Whatever was needed, he did it. He was that dad. He was that guy. But my son posted a couple of weeks ago. He posted a post to my husband, and he said, I'm sending a shout out to my dad for the guy who always holds it down for me. And he said he doesn't fuss, but no matter what, I send him, he may grunt for a minute, but he always says, I got you. And he takes care of it no matter what. And that moved my heart. And that same day, I saw on Facebook a video of a father sitting in his car, and he was crying. And he was sitting in his car, his truck, and he was sitting crying, and he dried his tears, and then he walked into his house with a smile on his face. He hugged his wife, he played with his kids, but nobody knew that he was just crying in his car, in his truck. How many men do that? I know you can't tell me if that's what you all have done, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? That's okay. But this is just some things I want to post to you all today. I just got a few things, and then I'm gonna really let you guys just chop it up and just talk to me and share with the audience on today, because I believe you all have some things that can help. You all are iconic men of God. Today, I know it's not easy to be a husband, a father, a brother, a son, providers, protectors. Talk to me. Who wants to take the first one? How is it? Because I know the statistics say out here, as I was reading about this, that there are 1 in 8 men who deal with depression. 1 in 5 that deal with anxiety. There are 6 million men out here who go undiagnosed, who have mental issues. How can we break that? That our sons and our grandsons don't suffer in silence. And for generations, men are taught to suffer in silence. For generations, it's a show of weakness if you cry. Suck it up. Don't you cry. You see what I'm saying? It's a toxic, what they call toxic masculinity. It's rampant in our sports. As I was reading about this, it's rampant, especially in sports organizations. So I'm gonna turn it over to you all.
Well, right off the bat, when you talked about us being taught, just for a quick story, one day my oldest son fell down and he was literally bleeding. And I was standing there telling him, suck it up, you're a man, don't cry. And my mother walked out and she said, what are you doing to that boy? Why are you telling him to ignore his pain? That's what you taught me. And she froze and she said, I apologize, that's wrong. So I was actually repeating the lessons that I was taught. Suck it up, you gotta keep going. You're responsible, you gotta take care of, your pain doesn't matter. And that was an introduction to corrective thinking that and I wasn't ready to accept it. And sometimes still not. Because at the end of the day, when people tell you, you know, to embrace and share your pain, while you're still responsible for other people, is a duality that's hard to mesh.
I agree with that. I was actually the child that was told that, and because my father was raised, well, my father actually wasn't raised by his dad. So my grandmother, being she had so many boys, she raised them to be hard-hearted. You know, I'll say that. And so he came up with that same concept is that you're not supposed to cry. And what happens is, to me, like you said, it makes a person turn off something. I believe you have to turn the switch off, whatever the switch is, to deal with what you're dealing with. You know, because again, if you don't have anybody you can trust to talk to about it, then what do? You have to suppress it. And eventually, like a volcano, suppressing it for so long it's going to explode. So I had to learn how to navigate without supervision. You know, and I believe that's what's going on in today's society, that we have kids. You don't have to live in, I don't believe that you have to live in a household. I don't. I think it's great if you have a two-parent household, but you need an active father. And you need an active father that's telling you positive concepts and telling you, okay, you know what, this hurt, let's allow it to hurt. Not trying to say this is what men do, because at the time I'm not a man. I can't live like a man as a 5-year-old. There's no way. I can't even comprehend what you're trying to say, so now I have to figure it out because I'm scared to ask a question.
Yeah. All the while where you're being told to produce.
Yeah.
You're told to love and protect, but you're never told to trust anybody with you.
That's right.
You know, and so that's why I always teach, you know, I don't care how much I love you. If I don't trust you, you'll never know me. You'll know what I can provide, but you'll never know me. You know, and so I find myself living by principles, but not emotions. And therefore I seem robotic to men. But can you really still love me if you knew me? And so that's a block that my wife has been dealing with me for years. As long as I provide, the rest don't matter. And then when you find out you're hurting the people you love, you turn around and feel defeated because it was never your intent to hurt the people you love.
Exactly.
And then there's no comfort. There's no, usually from my experience, there's no mercy for the real you from the people that you expect to understand.
That's interesting also. That's a very good point, because what happens, I know for me, you also build up walls that shouldn't be up. You know, because again, I sat back yesterday, well, not yesterday and prior, and I said, why do I not have a lot of friends? You know what I mean? In high school, I had a lot of friends because I was with the popular group. You know, I was with a group of people, and I say it all the time, we were very shallow. I met some people when I became an adult that I swore I never knew before. And they detailed, we went to school together, knew everybody I knew, and I apologized to her because I said I was shallow then. I did not, it was all about the group. And anybody else we took out, we didn't pay attention to. And I thought we was very wrong for that. And she was in my neighborhood, rode the buses, but I just didn't pay attention because again, I was just with this popular group. Now, to say this, that was a part of my upbringing. It made me not trust certain people, because once you get hurt and a person portrays your confidentiality, if that's a word, I don't know, I'm just a high school student here, but you don't want to take that chance. You know what I'm saying? Because men can get womanly sometimes. And you be like,
that's the truth.
You be like, oh snap, fam, I didn't know you was gonna go out like that. Well, that's my son, bro. I gave you some shared information that shouldn't have been shared. You know, it's not. I'm not going to jail for it, but I didn't want it to be exposed, because so now I draw back, and you limit your circle. You know, and we've talked about it that it's hard for me not to limit my circle because I've been doing it so long. I don't know how not to do it. You know, I really don't.
Well, I say it all the time, you can help a lot of people and still not get your needs met. That's just a reality, and even a woman can relate to that. You can help a lot of people and not get your needs met, and even when they tell you, take therapy, it used to be spiritualize everything, pray, okay, well, now it's therapy everything. Well, that has the same effect. Some therapy I cannot partake in because in order to heal myself, I have to hurt somebody else. If I want to fix something and tell my story, I have to hurt somebody else, and they may not be ready to reveal their portion of the story. So what will I damage trying to fix my own? So I would rather keep my own, suffer, stay saved, and not hurt somebody else. So again, the umbrella of love sometimes means somebody has to hurt, and that's the part that everybody won't get healed. From my estimation, somebody has to hurt, and so I volunteer.
That's a very good point. That's very, now you said something, the key word you said is they may not be ready to reveal their story. And that's a very valid point right there, because a lot of times what you're dealing with involves somebody else. 9 times out of 10 it does.
Yeah.
It involves somebody else. And so then you have now you're in a wrestling situation where you're like, okay, I need to get past this, but I can't get past this unless I dump all this out. If I dump all this out, now they don't have a chance to defend themselves, because the person, we say it all the time, with different modes of children, we say it all the time, the parent, the oldest child knew is not the same parent that the youngest child knew. So now the oldest child got an issue and said, no, daddy was a dirt bag. That's what we use back home, dirt bag. Daddy was a dirt bag. He was out there ripping and running. And the youngest is saying, no, daddy loved the Lord. No, I don't know the dad you know, because it's hard for me. I know it was hard for me to explain this is who I was, and now this is who I am with salvation. And so what happens, people can't see the difference, even children sometimes. They don't understand because they're not living the way I'm living. So therefore their mind can't transition that, okay, dad was in sin. He was messed up, he was drinking, smoking, cussing. But this dad is different, but they see the same it's like a whole soup. You try to separate soup. You can't separate soup. It's no way. Once it's mixed, it's done, but they don't see it that way. And I and that's what, just to scale back that, but a lot of times I've noticed that in a lot of people. You see what I'm saying? That the person you see now is not the person I dealt with. So then the child or grandchild says, well, you're hard on them, but you didn't know my dad or my mom. You didn't know my auntie. You wasn't even thought about when they did what they did when they did it.
If I can interject, because this is really good. This is really good. You both said some things that are very paramount. And just to go back, when you mentioned about that I choose to hurt, and I think that's the pinnacle of the suffering in silence, that
Correct.
You'll choose to take it on yourselves and suffer in silence instead of passing it on.
Well, even like you said with your children, that's one of the reasons I enjoyed your book so much, because it exposes that everybody is not ready to see me. Even your children out there. If you ever want to get hurt, everybody talk about spouses and church hurt. If you ever want to get hurt, let your child hurt you. Yes. The one that you sacrifice it all for, and then you have to turn around and protect them from being exposed. So when I say take it on, and somebody has to hurt, who are you going to expose? Who are you going to expose when the hurt is intimate? When the hurt is somebody you want to protect?
Yes.
You're going to expose them to heal yourself. So again, I know it's not public. A lot of things I say, people don't say, but at the end of the day, if it takes us to separate, and I eat it, and you narcissism, it's okay. It's okay.
Mhm.
Because one thing my mentor taught me, you might have the skill, but I have the gift. So if I have the gift, I'll be all right because I can do it again. You only get what I gave you up to that point. And then I have to turn around and reset and then rebuild and then not push that hurt on. That's one of the reasons I enjoy our relationship, because we don't push what happened to us onto each other.
Right. Yeah.
We share it, but we don't push it on each
Yes,
other.
sir. Mhm.
And we let it just come out organically. And so, I really appreciate this relationship, learning to appreciate it more.
Yes, sir.
And I'm glad you mentioned that relationship. Awesome. Because that right there is paramount, it's key, because you two can share. You mentioned earlier, that's what I wanted to go back to, is that trust factor. Because you are right. Even for women, women can be what we call catty.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, women can be catty, cliquish, things like that. So finding that person that I like to call it my tribe, or that person that you can be accountable to, that you can really, I've found that in your wife.
Okay.
I have found that I can be accountable. I can be me. I can be me and not stand in judgment.
That's good. Yeah.
I don't have to shrink myself. You ever been around somebody or around people that you can't be your genuine, authentic self? That you feel like you have to take down because you're too much for them to absorb?
Well, I'll take that a step further, because I've recently shared this with him. There's still levels to this. There's still areas that he's not been let into, and I've said to him, and I was just in my garage when I said it, a week or two ago.
Yeah.
When I invite you to my
What you
home,
gonna say? Yeah.
are you ready to meet the next level of me and still love me as is? Because there are still areas that he doesn't know. Can you love me with that? No necessarily hurting anybody, but still, there's some protected areas. And those are the areas, again, I keep reverting back to children and family. Those are the areas that you thought were safe. And then when you find out you're not safe in your own home, it gets interesting.
That's true. And that's a very valid point. You have to, my brain froze. You have to be comfortable with who. I think the first thing for us to help the audience and the listeners, for those all over the world, to let them know, first of all, you have to be comfortable within yourself. We have to find a way to be comfortable. And when I say comfortable, whereas I can say something, I didn't have to know him to know you. I'm gonna explain. When we started talking, I felt comfortable with your personality. It wasn't no fireball from heaven, the Holy Ghost, and we didn't have I didn't go into fasting and praying. I listened to your personality. I listened, not to rebuttal, but I listened. I said, okay, you know what? He's not like people prior to him. So I'm not gonna hold you to the people before you. See, that's where trust has to come in, because what happens is, too often, we hold people accountable for somebody else. Well, I'm not gonna let you do me like the person did me before, and that's not growth. So when we started talking, I was like, okay, I'm gonna share because I felt comfortable with when we started talking, just as a conversation piece. And I said, okay, we're good. You know what I mean? And then of course, afterwards I prayed about it. But before, I was just like, you know what? He seems like a very genuine, what you see is what you get. And I'm willing to accept who he is. You see what I'm saying? Like you said, it's the next level, because again, I refuse two things I don't want to do in life: be on eggshells and put somebody on eggshells. I'm not the one to judge your lifestyle. I'm not the one to judge you. I ain't gonna talk about your house or your whatever. I'm not that dude. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm like, yo, what you have a relationship with what you believe in, as do I. I'm not gonna sit there and say this, that, and the third. And too often, we lose trust judgmentally. I think we can. Yeah.
Two things before I lose them. One, that's another reason we get along so well. We don't take the time that we spend together to put other people down. We don't come just to to talk about grievances. We come to see if there's an issue and build from the issue. And that's, I can't be around people that only talk about problems, because I have enough of my own.
Thank
And
you.
so
Yes.
we don't come and destroy other people. We come to see where we need a little healing. He's quick to pray. I'm gonna tell you, he's quick to pray over there. And I appreciate that, because he sees pain and addresses it.
Mm-hmm.
And why that's good for me is because I can build. Because everywhere else, people, not everywhere else, but more times than not, people want you to produce for them. So the relationship is contingent upon what can you do for me. And to be quite honest, conversations like this, and a lot of men's spirits are considered weak. The conversation we're having right now is considered weak to a lot of men. So can you produce? Can you add value to my program? Then we can get along.
Yeah.
And that's, where do you release if you got to produce everywhere? And so this relationship has been important, because I don't have to come with the expectation of, if I don't meet his need, he's gonna leave me.
That's great. That's a
great.
good concept. That's a good concept. Yeah. But
Well, this has been good. As we're gonna get ready to sum things up, I really want to change the narrative. The basis for this coming about is to change the narrative and moving forward, because the statistics are so great. And as I was researching this and noticing the talk that's going on, especially in the sports arena, that there are so many men that are committing suicide. And even in the kingdom, in the church world, there are pastors that are killing themselves because they don't have anybody to talk to. They don't. And we've got to stop that, because we need the men to be whole. We need the men to be whole. You see, so understanding that relationship, I have 2 sons. We have 2 sons. And I want my sons to be able to pass on to their sons healthy relationships. You see what I'm saying? And, I don't want them to be suffering in silence. You see, my nephews to be suffering in silence. Even if I have cousins, so I want the narrative to change. I have brothers, I want that narrative to change. And so, and moving forward, as we, get prepared to summarize this up, what would you leave to the audience, those that are watching this? What would you say to them? How can we move? Because again, I have watched you too in the time that we, as your friendship has just grown, and the word of God says iron sharpens iron, and how it just strengthens the countenance of a friend, paraphrasing the word. And so, I have just watched as your friendship has grown, and I know how that feels when you trust. You have to build that, and I know it's yet growing, but for those that don't have that, how do you grow that? How do you get there? What do you look for in a brother that you can trust? And it's no frizzy nothing. I know all of that's out there and all of that, and people think that there's a weakness in it, and it's not. There's nothing. These are true men. You see what I'm saying? But how do you find that accountability in your fellow brother?
You have to allow yourself to heal. You have to allow yourself to, the Bible says, to have friends, you must be friendly. We have to practice it like shooting a free throw. We have to practice it. We have to say to ourselves, what happened to me in the past is past. I'm going to allow me to have a relationship with someone that I don't feel like I'm on bricks. Because if you don't practice it, then you're not going to be open to it. And the problem we're having with society is we have a group of men that don't know how to say they need help. So it's hard for me to help you if I don't know you need it. You see what I'm saying? It's hard to be helped if don't nobody know you need help. You see, so a lot of times, you clam up and say, I can fix it myself, and now I'm about to explode. But we have to realize there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Contrary to what we were taught, it is nothing wrong with asking for help. But a lot of times it is, I don't know if it's so much taught, but it's understood that this is what a man's supposed to do, and this is what a man's not supposed to do. And that creates a recipe for destruction. So anybody out there that will be listening to this, allow yourself to heal so you can have an opportunity for a relationship of a friendship of a lifetime that you may miss because of what somebody else did to you.
Well, before I go any further, I do want to thank you because this is not something that I would do. But to answer your question the best way I can, the atmosphere today is forcing it because I refuse to let my faith die. And in this era of inclusion, engagement, diversity, and inclusion, I'm fighting for my identity. You're not going to kill my inclusion to allow yours. Yeah. So it's forcing, if I believe what I believe, it's forcing me to come out of a comfort zone and show somebody else, hey, we're still here. We're still here, and there's somebody that actually applies what they learn. So for that purpose alone, it's paramount that these men fight for the faith. The Bible says contend for the faith. Yeah. And this is forcing us to do things that we probably wouldn't do. Probably you can hide behind the pulpit and after the benediction go home. Yes, but this forces you post-benediction to apply what's taught. Your job is making you apply what's taught, and your faith should be making you apply what you learn as well. So this is being almost pushed. It's almost atmospheric that it has to happen.
Now, I'm just saying one more thing, but he sparked something that got me caught up in. We're being forced to choose sides.
Amen.
There's a war going on. We've been saying it for years, but now we're in a situation, like you said, with DEI, that I always ask a question at work. You're forcing these rights on me, but you're killing mine. So then where are my rights to say I don't get down with this? So you're telling me I gotta suck it up so we can implement these rights, but then my constitutional rights are being wiped away to appease a certain sect. And I don't think that's right. So now, like you said, we're being forced now to stand for something. We have to stand for something because we're gonna fall for it. It's no way around. Now, there's no way around us not saying this is not right, and if I got to stand, I gotta stand alone. Because I'd rather stand alone and right than stand with a group of people that are wrong.
And so the question has come up, and I know you are trying to close out, but the question becomes, how do I love when I don't agree? And that's a component that we weren't taught. You have to agree in order for us to love. Now I'm having to learn to love where I don't agree. And that's a challenge because that puts a gap in between love and trust because we don't agree. Mm-hmm. So we have to actually see how God actually wanted that done because he died for the world that hadn't accepted him. So how do I treat you right where we don't agree until I cross that bridge where we can build trust? So it's becoming a process that I'm having to learn to understand.
Wow, so that just opened up a whole nother, we're not closing, I guess.
But that's real.
That just opened up a whole nother because that goes into a whole nother scripture where love hides the multitude of sins, and I have another friend who, she had a son who chose a different lifestyle than what she agreed with. And she said, it's my son. And I can't turn my son away. And I remember we had a women's conference. Well, I didn't call it a women's conference. I called it a women's encounter. I didn't believe, I see things differently than most. So I believe that we should, when we come together, it should not have been a conference. It was an encounter with God. When we, as women, we come before the throne as encounters with him. And at that time, as she spoke in a message, and in that she said, we have to love what the unlovely. And she said, I didn't like what he was doing, but I still had to love my son. And he knew I didn't like it, but I still had to love him, despite his lifestyle. And that's sometimes what love looks like. And then just praying that things will change, because it does. It can. As long as they have not sent the sin on to death, and then God has allowed them this opportunity to still be here on this earth, people can change. They can change. I know this is a man's thing, but people can change. I have seen it. We had an old leadership back in Tennessee, Mother Kendall, and she posted maybe about 2 years ago, and it's a movement of those who living with alternative lifestyles changing back over. So I am so crazy enough to believe that if we hold on and push the faith and keep going, that God can do anything.
Well, see, that's the issue that I have. That's the obvious stuff. Because if I didn't believe in change, then where's my hope? There's stuff that we want to talk about alternate lifestyle. I believe alternate lifestyle is being promiscuous and fornication. If I didn't stop that, just me, if I didn't stop that,
right,
that's something that we will say is okay. And we won't ask to change that. And that's worse. So we can live in that and die in that, and then judging the person that has what we would call obvious. So if I don't believe in the possibility of change, then what am I preaching? Because it had, again, we were taught as man, as long as you provide. I don't care how many women you mess with, how much you drink or whatever, as long as you provide. So I had to learn that it was not okay for me to be promiscuous. That wasn't taught, that was learned, because it was, again, it was acceptable as long as you came home and paid bills and and all.
Took care of family.
So that is not right. I had to learn, because I was always looking for the loophole of scripture that let me be saved and do what I wanted to do. I had to learn, instead of pointing out, they seen that sexual immorality covered it all.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm gonna look at someone with alternate lifestyle and not judge the one that's fornicating, then I'm a hypocrite. So it's an umbrella, and the man has to learn what's acceptable for my daughter is acceptable for my son. Probably died out. What's acceptable for my daughter was acceptable for my son.
Right.
And that changed the game. But my oldest son didn't know me like that. My oldest son knew me growling and listening to DMX and riding down the road. I don't even have him in a car seat. I got him in a seatbelt. So that's like you said, the father that my oldest son, my baby, never knew me out, has never known me out of church.
Exactly.
So I'm caught in the bridge. God, let him make it. Let her make it. I for children. Let them make it like you let me make it.
Right.
And I also had to learn, unfortunately not fast enough, that it's in their time, not when I want to be. And that's the problem. Impatient love. I want them to be now at their age where I am in my 50s. And that's abuse. Wow. That's abuse, because I'm forcing something on them that they're not ready for. If you saw me trying to make my baby drive a car, you would say I'm abusive. Well, a lot of times we do that in church. We want them to be now and out of time, hoping that they can get it without going through the experiences. And it's not that's a form of abuse that I've learned to accept, because I wasn't patient with my own. So then I turned the same house that I said I didn't feel safe in, I turned my house unsafe. So then so I always say, what did I do that made this like it is? And if I can fix that portion, then I let the rest be handled in time and be okay with that. Again, I know it's not popular, but somebody gonna have hurt. Somebody gonna have hurt.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a very valid point. Because we were taught as kids, I'm gonna go back to childhood, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt.
That's a lie.
That is a lie.
That's a lie.
I don't know who made this up, but they lied. A hit healed. words can carry you through your life.
Linger and linger.
And when you said that, then I thought about my favorite movie my wife always talks about. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Sometimes we cannot share everything because it will hurt the person and they're not mature enough to handle it. So you have to eat certain things. And and not saying we're crazy or arrogant, but we sometimes, I know for me, I say, you know what, Lord, I can handle it. I can deal with it, but the person that wants the truth may not can handle it. So then why would I put something on someone that can't handle it that may offset the relationship or offset their path? You know, and so we have to be mindful, mature enough, as you said, everything can't be said. I can't go back and say, you know, this is, you know, you didn't bring my TV back in 1979 and I'm still hurting, and because that may hurt the person that made, I didn't see the backstory. You see what I'm saying? Maybe I didn't see the backstory, and a lot of times kids don't see the backstory of their parents. They don't know what all it took for them to get you to have food and shelter. So you're like, I want to be like everybody else. I want my Reeboks and my, you know, my Adidas and all that. But they're sitting there just trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. And so now that child's holding a grudge that they were wearing the buddies and the skips, and they're still holding on to the fact that kids ridicule them. But they're not understanding mom is begging and borrowing to try to keep the utilities up and keep the rent going. You see what I'm saying? And you don't see it. Sometimes you don't catch it till you're an adult yourself. You know, because kids want what they want.
Right.
We wasn't into Jordans. Jordans wasn't even a thing.
Converse.
Yeah, we was in the Converse, you know, citywide ponies. I mean, I don't know if they had them up here. We had Reeboks, we had Adidas, we had BKs, British Knights. I mean, but mom can't get your every whim every time you want something. But us as children don't understand no. And that could grow up in us.
Yes.
And make us take wrong directions. Because no was like, I'm hurt, my world ended. But you're not understanding the backstory. You see what I'm saying? I think, and it's not intentional. I just think society makes us, even in the 70s and 80s, it makes us felt like we had to have this. To be, because we didn't want to be picked out. We didn't want to be picked on. And if you have different stuff, you know, that's less expensive, you're going to be talked about. And so it causes you to say, well, this is what happened. I'm gonna finish up with this. What happened to me, because I didn't have, my mom was a single mom, I overworked to make sure my kids didn't have that problem. And that's equally wrong. See, it's just as wrong as not having. Now, she did the best she could. So now in my mind, well, my kids ain't gonna want for nothing, but then I didn't teach them anything. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, and I'm the opposite. I told so much for trying to prepare them for my experiences, and even my children today say, well, what do you think we're out there doing? I'm always over preparing, too much information, too much exposure. I've given my kids too much heavy stuff, too young. And to circle to a close, I too have been that person who would get off work and stop and sit at the foot of the Django Bridge and cry and decide whether or not it was better off for me to go home or to disappear. So I understand the comment. I've been that guy. I've sat in the hotel with a black 9mm trying to decide if it's worth it. And I would get those timely messages from my mother that said, hey, your son looking for you to come home. And then to look at my wife and say, you know what? I got everything in place so that you would be all right if I'm gone. Is it time for me to go? And my mentor once to tell me, he said, look here, I need you to get the thought of death out of your head because people need what you have to say. So when you get to the point where you embrace death because you provide it and you feel like you're saved and you provide everybody and death seems okay, you need to have a friend.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. Well, I'm gonna stop right there because I got another thought going, but I think that was very valid to what you said, because again, it goes back to your mind can race, you know, your mind can race. And what you said was very paramount when you said you gave too much information. Because, and I say it all the time, saw it on Facebook, the world our parents prepared us for no longer exists.
No longer exists.
So I was telling my kids about poverty, underserved community, single parenting. They couldn't understand what I was saying. So I'm telling them about what I experienced, and I don't want them to be in that situation, but they couldn't grasp it because we both was in the house. So now I'm telling them about dodge this, don't go here, don't do this, and it made them scared to do anything because I was teaching out of fear. I was teaching out of fear because I came up where there was shooting going on, death all the time, pimps, pushers, rapes, and I was fearful that I didn't want them to experience the death of life. You see what I'm saying? So I sheltered them from a lot of stuff because I said, I don't think you're strong enough to deal with what I had to deal with. I didn't choose to deal with it, I had to. And I'm not gonna let you deal with that. And I think I gave too much information. And that in turn altered some things that I'm trying to get back sorted out with them, you know. So.
Wow. I can't clap. I'm a person who likes to talk with my hands, so using a mic is gonna definitely be a challenge as a podcast. I'm still learning this podcasting, but as a person who is a podcaster, so I'm gonna have to get a stands or something. But I just want to commend you both for your candidness and your honesty on today. This has been powerful. Thank you. Thank you both for sharing. And you unpacked a lot. And to those that have listened to this and will listen to this, I hope that you have taken these nuggets and that you apply them, that you just don't walk away from this and just shrug it off, that you apply what has been learned on today, everything that they have shared with you, because they have bared their hearts. They have literally welcomed you into their homes, but also into their soul, literally, because they have poured out on today, decades of experience and knowledge. So, on that, I'm going to close. Again, I commend you both, Pastor Wesley, to my husband, Kevin W. I always like to throw that in there, Kevin W. God bless his grandmother. She's gone on, but she always called him Wayne. That was her Wayne, beautiful woman. And so with that being said, I thank you for tuning in to NUYU Voices Emerge. Until next time, if you have any questions or comments, anything, or you want to get in touch with these dynamic men, you can always email me at NUYUvoicesemerged@gmail.com. Any other topics that you want to hear on this podcast. Until next time, where your voices shall be heard.